Before learning to Dart, you must know what is Dart. Dart is an open source client optimized general purpose programming language that is used to develop fast apps on almost any platform. The platforms can be mobile, web, and desktop. I said three terms: open source, client optimized, and general purpose. So what that means? Let's break it down. By open source, I means that the source code of the Dart is publicly available and anyone can contribute and report the issues. This openness encourages collaboration, transparency, and community involvement. And the next thing is client optimized. By client optimized, I means that Dart is mainly used on client sides, particularly for web and mobile apps. In case of web, the Dart programming language is compiled to highly optimized JavaScript, and in case of mobile apps, Dart is commonly used with Flutter framework to create visually appealing and efficient cross-platform apps. And the final thing I said is general purpose. By general purpose, I means that Dart is not limited to a specific domain or area. It can be used for a wide range of programming tasks, from web development to mobile app development to server-side programming. And there are other key features of Dart programming language such as Dart use JIT or just-in-time compilation for fast development and hot reloading, and it also uses the ahead of time or AOT compilation for efficient execution in production. Dart is also an object-oriented programming language which allows developers to create reusable and modular code using objects and classes. It also supports asynchronous programming for long-running tasks, especially for the tasks like network requests. Dart programming language also has a package manager called Pub, where developers can easily share and consume packages, libraries, and dependencies from various programming backgrounds. For more on Dart, head on over to dart.dev, and with that understanding, let's get started with our crash course of Dart programming language. So, as an editor, we will use DartPad, which is an online editor tool for Dart which executes Dart code. You can use any other editor you like, but I would recommend to use this editor for just learning Dart fundamentals because this is online, lightweight, and do not require any additional setup. Just search for DartPad on the internet browser and there you go. And it has some setting preferences like new pad. When you click this window will appear in front of you. And here is Dart and Flutter, like you can run Dart code as well as Flutter code in here. So let's cancel it. We have this reset option to reset the code that we have wrote. Like if I write something else in here, ty and reset it. Hit OK, so it's resetted and the ty has gone from here. And here is the format, like if our code is not formatted, so we will click this and this will format our code. So now when I click this will say format successful, and the open bracket becomes like this, and now it's formatted. And here is the option for install SDK to install SDK on your device and use it in other editors like VS Code, Atom, and some other. And here are some samples in here for Flutter and also for Dart, like we have the Fibonacci sequence sample, HTTP request sample, and hello world sample. And here are some other samples for Flutter like the counter, sunflower, dragables, and some other. And we have the hello world Dart sample, like when I click this will give us the hello world sample for Dart. And here is the GitHub. When you click this, you can log into GitHub and also do some other things in here. And when you click this three dots, here is the share to share this page and DartPad on GitHub and Dart Dev and Flutter Dev website. And also down here we have the version of Flutter, like this is the latest version of Flutter and also for the Dart. And here we are using the staple channel of Flutter version 3.3.9 and Dart version 2.18, and this is our hello world sample. So now run this code. This is a button to run the code, and we got this output in this console. Like if we run some code, this will give us the output in here. And this documentation is to show the documentation for some function in the code. Like if you have used any other editors like Android Studio, IntelliJ IDE VS Code when you hover some function in there. So a small pop-up appears and there was some documentation of that specific function. Like if I click this print in here, so you can see there comes its documentation. Void print, it accepts an object and prints a string representation of the object to the console. And here is the open library docs. When you click it, this will take you to its documentation, and it's coming from the Dart core library, which give us the built-in types, collections as I said, and this other core functionality of Dart. So you can read this documentation of developer to get to know more about this core library functions of Dart. So now let's again back to the DartPad. So like this, we can check the documentation of any function and some class. So that was it for the DartPad. So now it's time to start our Dart basic fundamentals. So first of all, we have this main method in Dart. Or let's just remove these for from here, and also this documentation, and also this unused curly brace from here. So in every app, we must have a top level this main functions which serves as an entry point for the app, and this void as a function return type means that does not return any value. Like that's the function and its type is void. It means that it does not return any value. But that's the main function of Dart that every app must have, and it serves as an entry point for the app. Inside this, we will write the code and that will be executed and will give us the output in the console. So first of all, let's talk about the Dart data types. So Dart supports some data types that are strings, numbers, booleans, lists, and map. So now, what is string? String is a sequence of character that is represented in the double quotation or single quotation. Like any value in this double quotation is string. And numbers. The numbers are then divided into two parts that are integer and double. Integers are some numeric value that can be negative or positive, and double are the decimal value like the point value, some floating value like 1.0, 5.0, 9.9 and anything like this. And the booleans are the data types which can either be true or false. And list is a collection of some data objects, and its synonym is an array in other programming languages. And next we have the map, and maps are key value pairs. If you are familiar with any other programming languages like JavaScript, Python and others. In JavaScript we have the objects, and in the Python we have the dictionaries, and in Dart they are called maps. They are key value pairs. So these are the data types that Dart programming language support. And next, let's see how we can declare a variable in Dart programming language. So here we will comment out. These are the comments. Use this slash, and in front of it, when you write something, that code or that text will not be executed, and these are the comments. So here we will write the comment create variable. So how we can create variable, as Dart is statically typed language, so we will use the specific type for a variable to create. So first of all, a variable acts as a container for values in a program, like a container to store some bunch of data inside. So let's create a string variable. Its type will be string, and its name will be, let's say, only name will be equal to string represent the sequence of character which will be wrapped in the quotation marks and semicolon. So inside this we will name this Steve. So that's how we can initialize a variable in Dart programming language, or create a variable, and its type is string. Now let's declare one more variable, and its type will be integer. So right after this we are going to have int, and let's say num, or let's say number equal to 5, or it can also be -5 or 0. So that's an integer. And next double will be some floating or decimal value, like let's say point number. We will name this variable. This will be equals to 5.5. And next let's declare the boolean variable, and in Dart programming language we use int for integer and bool for boolean, and its name will be is done, like using for some work. If some work is done, so it's true or false. So we have the true and false in Dart programming language, and these are the only values for booleans. It can be either true or false. And the list are the collection of some data or objects. Let's say list of bananas equals to a list, and this is going to accept banana 1, banana 2 and banana 3. So this is the list of bananas which contains 3 banana, 1, 2 and 3, and we represent the list in this large brackets, and each thing in the list is called an element, and each element is separated using the comma. And next we have the map. Map are key value pairs. If you are familiar with some other programming language, you might definitely familiar with the JSON format, or in Python dictionary, or in JavaScript objects. These are key and value pairs. So the map will be like, let's say user data will be equal to, we represent map inside the curly braces, and here its value will be name and let's say John. So that's the first key and value pair. The key and value pairs are separated using this colon. So the string which becomes first from this colon is key, and next string which comes in front of this column is value. And we will also separate these key value pairs using comma. So now that's one key value pair, and next we are going to have its edge. Edge is 5. So that's the map key and value pairs, and that are the data types of Dart programming language. And that's how we initialize variables or create variables in Dart programming language. And if the type of the variable is not explicitly specified, the variable's type is dynamic. Like we have the keyword where. If we use this and name our variable, let's say list of apples, that's the name of the variable, equals to, and you put square brackets, that is also the list. So we can do apples or apple 1 and apple 2. So that is also the list, and the same can be for like where, and let's say value equal to 5.5. So that's now the double. And also we can use the keyword dynamic for this. So this will be also the dynamic value, and for where this will be also the same. And next we have some keywords of final and const. These variables are used to declare the constant value. Like if we have the final variable, and that's a, and that's equal to 5. And again if we reinitialize this variable and do a equal to 6 and put semicolon here, so you can see a small red line down the a. So when I hover this, it is saying the final variable a can only be set at once, meaning that it is constant value, it cannot be changed. But in case of other values, like we have this double point number, and we do point number equal to 6, so that's not giving us the compile time error that it is not possible, just because these are not the constants. So let's remove this, and the const is the same, we cannot do this. Now it is saying constant variables can't be assigned a value. So that's how this final and const variables are. And these variables are also called the identifiers, and there are some rules for declaring variables. The first rule is the variables can contain numbers. Let's type the rules also in here. So one is can contain alphabets and numbers. Like when we declare a variable of string and we name it b, so that's an alphabet, and we say 5 6, so that's okay, equal to 5. But this will be in the string just because its type is string, so that's okay, to use alphabets and numbers in the variable names. And the rule number 2 is the variables cannot contain spaces and special characters. Like, let's remove this from here and write one more comment, rule 2, and also make it rule, and this rule will be cannot contain spaces and special characters. So like if we have a variable of again the string and we do a space b equal to 5, so that's not correct. It is saying undefined name b, and also we cannot use the special characters in the variable names. Like we have a, b, c, the variable name, and we use the modulus in here, so that's not correct. You can see so many errors on the right hand side. And we cannot use also this in here, and we can also not use these parenthesis brackets in the middle of the brackets like these special characters. And inside this rule 2, we cannot use any special characters except the underscore and the dollar sign. Like we can use the dollar sign in here, so this is not going to be a problem. So let's wrap it in the string characters to remove this error. And we can use the dollar signs in the variable names and also these underscores in here. So this is not going to cause problems just because we can use these in our variables. And rule 3 is variable cannot start from numbers. Like we cannot do, we have this variable, we cannot put 6 before this. This will cause error like undefined name. So we cannot start a variable name from the number. So these are some rules for declaring variables. And let's also remove this for this const. So we have talked about data types and the variables. And now we can also print these variables. We have the print function, and if we print the variable of name and run this, so we will get the Steve in the console, and these errors are because they are all saying the variables we have created are not used. So that's because the warnings are in here. And in the console you can see we got Steve if we print the name in here. And let's print these bananas and run this, so we will get the list of bananas, banana 1, 2 and 3. And if we print the value, this is our dynamic variable, so this will give us this Sam 5.5. So to check the type of this value, if it's double or not, so we can do value dot runtime type and run this. So instead of the value, now we will get its type. You can see it's double as the value is by 5.5. And if we remove the 5.5 and again run this, so now this time we will get the console integer. You can see integer. And what if there were string? So we will get in the console string. So now what we have done, we have talked about data types, we have created data types for the variables, we create the variables, we talk about the rules of the variables, and we also print the values. So now it's time to move to the operator. So what is operator? In mathematics and computer programming, an operator is a character that represents a specific mathematical or logical action or process. And in Dart programming language, we have different operators. So if you are familiar with any other programming language, you might be familiar with these operators. If not, so that's why you are here. We will going to learn the operators of Dart programming language. So first of all, let's comment out here. What are the operators we have in the Dart programming language? So first operator is arithmetic operator, and the second is equality or relational operator, and on the third number we have the type test operator to test the type of the variable. And next on the fourth number we have the assignment operator, and last but not the least we have the logical operator. And next we also have the bitwise operator, and that is for some other binary works. So that's not really important most of the times in development. So we are going to explore these operators now. So first of all, what is arithmetic operators? The arithmetic operators are like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, and that division which returns an integer value but not in the decimal. And we have the increment and also the decrement. So these are the arithmetic operators. So first of all, let's perform some operations on some values. But before this, let me tell you one more thing. We are going to have the values like 5 plus 5 or like 6 minus 2 and any operators between the values. So these values at both sides are called the operand, and the add sign between them is called an operator, which is an arithmetic operator. So the 5 and 5 are operands, and the between addition sign is called an operator. Now let's remove this, and we are going to have an integer variable which name will be num, will be equal to 5, and we are going to have another variable will be num2, or let's also name it num1 equal to 10. So we got two operands stored in the integer type variables named num1 and num2. Now let's perform the addition arithmetic operation on these two operands stored in the variables num1 and num2. So we are going to have another variable, its type will be int and will be result equal to, and in this result we will add these two variables like num1 add num2, and now we will print the result. So what we have done, we performed the addition operation on two operands num1 and num2, which values are 5 and 10, and lastly we print the result. So now run this code, and this will give us the answer of 15. So we got the answer 15, and we can also perform the subtraction, and when we run this, this will give us the output of -5, like subtract 10 from the 5, so we will get the -5. And we can also perform the multiplication on them, and now run this, so the answer is 5 multiplied by 10, we got 50. And next we have the divide, to divide num1 on num2, but as if 5 divide on 10, so this will give us answer in the decimal, so we have to change type of result to double, so the answer will be in double. So now run this code, and we will get the answer in decimal 0.5. So that was the divide, and now next is the modulus, to get the modulus of these two numbers. Now run this, and there is an error. It is saying the value of int can't be assigned to. Okay, so now we have to change its type to int, just because its result will be in the integer. Now run this, so we will get the answer 5. And next we have this divide. So now you can see this divide is not saying to change the result type to double, just because this divide will return the result in the integer and will remove the decimal point. So now run this, so we will get the 0 instead of 0.5. So it removed the 0.5 from here and give us the result only 0, just because this divide removes the decimal point from the result. So now we have the increment and the decrement. So now remove this 2 from here and put the increment operators before this num1 and run this. So we have the value of 5 in here, and it will increment the num by 1 and will give us the answer 6 in here. And when we put double minus in here, the decrement operator, and run this, so this will give us 4. So that was it for the arithmetic operators, and that's how this works. And next we have the equality and relational operators. So let's comment these out and also start working on this equality or relational operators. So this equality and relational operators are the operators of greater than or less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and finally not equal to. and this return the boolean value like the relational or the equality operator to check if the one value is greater than the other value, so the result will be true if it's actually the first value is greater than the second value. So now let's copy these, or let's uncomment them and cut this from here and paste it in here. So now it's time for use these equality or relational operators. So we have num1 and num2 having the value of 5 and 10, and remove this result from here, and in the print statement we will compare these num1 and num2 using the equality and relational operators. So we will say num1 is greater than num2 and print it simply. So the num1 is greater than num2? No, it's not. So in the answer we will get the answer of false. Let's run it and check it also. So we got false in here just because num1 is not greater than num2, and when we do num1 is less than num2 and again run this, so we will get answer of true. And these operators also used in the if-else condition which will come after these operators, so you will get to know also about these. And if you are familiar with any other programming language, so you might be familiar with also these if-else conditional statements. So the next operator of equality is greater than or equal to. So this operator only check or will return the true value if in case the first value is greater than the second value, and this operator will only return true if the first value is less than the second value, as we had in the previous condition before this one. And this condition or this operator, relational or equality operator, will return true only when the first value is greater than or equal to the second value. Only this time this will return true, otherwise this will return false. And for this less than or equal to, it's the opposite of this, like when the first value is less than or it's equal to the second value, so only in this case this will return true, otherwise false. And in this not equal to operator means this will only return true when first value is not equal to second value. If it was equal, so it will return false. If it was not equal, so it will obviously return true. So first we have checked the greater than and also the less than, and now we are checking greater than or equal to. So now we are checking if num1 is greater than or equal to num2, so return our result in the console. So let's check num1 is greater than or equal to num2. Num1 is neither greater than nor equal to num2, so when we run this will give us false, just because both conditions are false. And what if it was 5 and 5? Now num1 is not greater than num2, but num1 is equal to num2, so this time this will also return true, just because this condition of equality is true. You can see we got the answer true. And now let's also change it to 10 and check the other condition, num1 is less than or equal to. So the first condition is true, num1 is less than, but num1 is not equal to num2. So when we run this will also give us the answer true, just because the first condition is of less than is true. So you can see we got true. And again in this, if we make this 10 to 5, and this time this will also be true, and we got true in here. So the last operator is not equal to. So when we put not equal to, so this will return true, just because num1 is not equal to num2, and run this and we will get the answer true in here. And we get false just because we have changed the value of num2 to 5, and when we again change its value to 10, so obviously now num1 is not equal to num2, so this will give us the answer true. This gives us the answer false just because I changed the num2 value to 5 and this was equal, and that's why this gives us the value or the result false. And now these are not equal, so we got the answer true, just because we are saying it's not equal to 2. Yes, it's not equal to true, we got the result 2. So that was our operators of equality and relational, and you will also get to know more about these relational or equality operators when you use this in the conditional statements. And next operator is type test operator. So in the type test operators we have the operators of is and is not. First is, so we will say num1 is int, And when we run this, so this will give us the answer true just because the num1 type is int. And now when we change the type of the num1 and also the value of the num1 to decimal and type, now when we run this, so we will get the answer of false just because now the value and the type is not integer, so we got the false. And now when we make this not, means the num1 is not int, so this will be false just because num1 is not int, it's double. Run this, so we'll get the answer true. And there we go, we got the answer true. And that was really simple type test operators. And next we have the operators for assignment. So the assignment operators are, first operator is the operator we have used so many times, that is equal to, like we are assigning the 5.5 value to this num1 variable, and this is first assignment operator. And next assignment operator is plus equal to, meaning that add the particular value to the variable. And next is subtract equal to, and fourth is divide equal to. And now that's it. So we have the double num1 with the value of 5.5. So let's comment this out and only use this num2 for now. So let's also create one more variable and name it result. Its type is int. Make it equal to num2 plus equal to 1 and put semicolon in here, and also print this num2. So what we have done, we have 10 value in the num2. We have created another variable, and in the num2 we have add one more value, so it will become 11. So now run this and we will get the answer 11. And we can also do minus or subtract equal to, so this will become 9. And also for multiply we can do, or we have not write the multiply in here, so after this we can do multiply equal to also for a variable or the variable value. Now run this, so 10 will be multiplied by 1, so it will be only 10. Like if we do multiply by 5, so it will be now multiply by 5 and will become 50. So that's how we can use the assignment operator. And the last one is divide and equal to. Now run this, and this will throw an error just because we have to change the return type of it to double, because it will return the value in the decimal. This will be 5.5 or let's say 5.0, and that's it. But there is still an error just because we have to change this num2 also to double. Now so that was it. Now run this, so we will get the answer 2 just because 10 divided by 5, 5 2s are 10. And if it was some other value, so its answer will be in the decimal like 5.5, and run this, so we will get answer in decimal 1.818181 and so on. So that was our assignment operator. And the last operator we are going to explore is the logical operator. Logical operator. So in the logical operator we have the operators of AND operator, which is represented by double AND, and we have the OR operator, which is represented by this pipe, and the NOT operator, which is represented by only this sign. So now when these operators is going to return some value or true or false. So first of all we will talk about the AND operator. The AND operator. So for AND operator we have this small table in here. So 1 and 1 equal to 1 means if both conditions are equal to true, so only in case we are going to have the true answer, otherwise the answer will be false no matter one of the condition like this are true, and if both were false, so the answer will also be false. Now let's apply it on the code and remove this first double value and make this value to int. And in the print statement we will check if num2 is greater than 5, or let's also create another num1 in here, or let's uncomment this num1 we already have in here and change its decimal value to only integer. And now we will check if num2 is greater than or let's say num1 is greater than num2, and if num1 is less than num2. So the first condition is true. No, it's not true. The num1 is not greater than num2, but num1 is less than num2. And the second condition, we have the num1 is less than num2. So we have this condition satisfied. The first condition is false and the second condition is true, so the answer is 0, so it means the answer will be false. So if you don't believe me, let's run and see the answer. So we got the answer false just because one of the condition is false. And in case if we got the first condition true and second condition false, so the answer will also be false. And in case if we got both conditions false, so the answer will also be false. But in case if we got two conditions true, means both conditions true, so the second condition is already true, and the first condition, to make it true, we have to do the less than also. So now in these two conditions, we are checking the same conditions, or let's do not equal to. So first condition, num1 is not equal to 2, it's true. And the second condition, num1 is less than num2, it's true, because num1 is less than num2 and num1 is not equal to num2. So both conditions are true, and when we run this, so we will get the answer true, just because now this condition is satisfied. So that's how our AND operator works. And next we have the OR operator. So for the OR operators, we have the table. We will get only true answer whenever both conditions are true, and we will get the true answer when one of the condition is also true, and we will also get the answer of false whenever the both condition are false. So let's also try it out. Remove this and use this pipe for the AND. So first condition is true, second is also true, so in case we will get true just because in OR this first condition is satisfied, so we got the answer true. And let's say 1 is equal to num1 is equal to num2. The first condition is false and the second is true, so we will run this and we will get the answer. Now this condition is satisfied. If one condition is true, so the answer will be true. So now let's also do this. Num1 is greater than num2, so now both conditions are false, and run this, so we will get the answer false, just because now this condition is satisfied. And the NOT operator is the operator which makes the true answer false and the false answer true. Like, let's remove these two variables from here and create a variable of boolean, and let's say is light equal to false, means light is false or off. So we will do is light. First of all, let's print it and run this code. So obviously we will get the answer in the console false, and we got false. Now when we put the NOT operator before this, so we will get the answer true. It means not light, not is light, so change its value to true. So you can see we got the true value. So that's what it does. So when we change the value of false to true and run this again, so we will get the answer of false. So that's how all these operators works. First we have to talk about the arithmetic operators, some addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, and this division for getting the non-decimal value, increment and decrement. Equality and relation operator for checking the greater and the less values, greater than equal to values, and check if the value is not equal to the other value. And the type test if one value type is int, double, string, etc. And the assignment operator for assigning the values, like we are assigning one value by adding it, like we have done for the 10. We have plus equal to 1, so we have add one value to the variable, and the same for all of these. And these operators we use so many times to assign one value to a variable. And these logical operators works like this. If both conditions are true, only the answer will be true for AND, otherwise false. And in the OR, if some of the condition or both conditions are true, so we will only get the answer false. Otherwise, if both conditions are false, so we will get the answer of false. And NOT operator to convert the true to false and false to true. So that was it also for the operators. So before going forward for the conditional statements, in the equality operator we have one more operator, that is equal to check if the value is equal to the other value. Only in this case this will return the true. Now let's remove this and test it also. Suppose we have the variable num1 and also the variable of num2, and next we have a print statement, and inside this we check num1 is equal to num2. So in this case num1 is not equal to num2, so when we run this will give us the answer of false. So now when we change the value of num2 to 5 and again run this, now num1 is equal to num2, so the answer is true. So now it's time to go for the if else or the conditional statements. So let's remove all these data from here. So the conditional statements are like the decision making. Conditional statements or decision making. This includes if, else and if, else, later. And its syntax is like if some condition is true, so do something in here, and in the else do something else. Like if the specified condition in here is true, do this, and if it was not true, do what is in the else condition. And for that we have the keyword of if and else in our Dart programming language. So now let's remove this syntax, or let's comment this syntax in here. So using this syntax we will do our work on this conditional statements or decision making conditions. So first let's do the same as we did for the arithmetic operators. Int num1 equal to 5 and int num2 equal to 10. Now we will check if the num1 is greater than num2. So what you have to do, print and say num1 is greater than num2. And if this condition was not true, in the else condition what you have to do is to copy this and paste it in the else, and now say num1 is less than num2. So num1 is less than num2 and the first condition is not satisfied, so this will execute the else condition when we run this, and this will say num1 is less than num2 just because the if condition is not true. And you can see we got the num1 is less than num2. And so now if we say num1 is equal to num2 and in the print statement we do num1 is equal to num2 and also change their values and run this. So now first if condition is true, so we will get this first print statement in our console, and you can see we got num1 is equal to num2. Now the first condition was true, and we can do some other thing like remove this, and let's suppose we have only one variable for now and the num1 has the value of 12, and here we will check if the num1 modulus of 2 was equal to 0. So print this is even number, and in the else condition simply print this is odd number. So what this condition means? It means if the number in our num1 variable divided by 2 and its remainder is 0, so you have to print this is even number, just because each even number that is divided by 2 its remainder comes 0. So in this case we will print this is even number, otherwise this will be odd number. So when we run this we will get the answer this is even number, just because when we divide 12 by 2, so the remainder becomes 0 at the end. So when we do this 13, so when we divide 13 by 2, its remainder do not becomes 0, so this will say this is odd number. You can see we got this odd number, and before for 12 it was this is even number. And these condition statements used for so many condition checks or decision making. Like now also uncomment this. So one more condition here we can use is, first we will change the num1 to total marks of a student. So the total marks are, let's say, 1000, and the obtained marks by students are, let's say, 500. So on these two variables we will check the conditions like if the obtained marks were greater than or equal to 900 and the obtained marks of the student is less than total marks. So what you have to do is to print your grade is A. And now here we will use the if-else ladder. So to make if-else ladder, we are going to have multiple conditions like else if. So there will becomes another condition like, let's copy this and paste it right here. We will check if the obtained marks of the student is greater than or equal to 700 and the obtained marks are less than total marks. So we will copy this print statement and paste it in the else if. So we will see your result is B, and also we again will check if else if the obtained marks of the student is greater than or equal to 500 and obtained marks are less than total marks. If the both conditions were true, we will print your grade is C, and in the else condition we will do nothing but only print, let's say, better luck next time. So we got a ladder of if else. Like first this will check if the obtained marks of the student, these total marks, were greater than or equal to 900 and the obtained marks are less than total marks. So in case if both conditions were true, so the grade of the student will be A. And in the else if, we are again checking if the obtained marks of the student are less than or greater than or equal to 700 and obtained marks are again less than total marks. If both conditions were true, the students will be grade B, and the same for the grade C. And if these three conditions were false, so in the else condition we will do or print the statement better luck next time. Now run this. The obtained marks are 500, so it means this condition is true, so the grade of the student will be C. So you can see we got the your grade is C and the third conditions were true. And if we check, and if we now change the obtained marks to, let's say, 400, now no conditions here is true. Now when we run this, we will get this else statement. It is saying better luck next time. And if we do 850, so now second condition is true and we will get the grade B. And that's how you can also create the system like this using the if-else conditions, and these are really useful conditions which were used in real-time problem, and you will get to know more about these when you go for the real app development of our Flutter. So that was it for the if-else condition. And at the alternative of if-else conditions, we have the switch statements in our Dart programming language, but these switch statements compare integers and string instead of boolean. The syntax of switch statements will be something like this. Like first we are going to have the switch keyword, and on some integer or string value we will switch, and when the case matches to the value, then we will perform some actions on the different cases. So now let's see with the real example of it. First of all, we will initialize a variable in here. So now we will switch on this date and open the body, and then we will check for the cases. If the case was 1, so open the body and print today is 1 date, put semicolon here and break this statement. So copy this statement and paste it 5 more times. So we got these cases in the switch statement 5 times, and if the case was 1, so we will say today is date 1. If the case was 2, so we will say today is 2 date. And if the case was 3, so we will say today is 3 date. And if the case was 4, so we will say today is 4 date. And if the case was 5, so we will say today is 5 date. And now you can see the code is not formatted, so we have the option here to format our code. So when we click this, so this will format our code, which will looks really good after formatting it. So we have the date variable of integer, and now we are switching on the date variable. We are saying if any case matches, simply print that statement and break it. Break means just terminate that switch statement and do not check the other one. Just break it, terminate, and print that statement which we have done in here for all of these cases. So now date is 5, so the fifth case will be match and we will get the output of today is 5 date. So now run this code to get the output from the switch statement. So you can see in the output we got today is 5 date just because the date value is equal to 5 and we perform switch on the integer value. And now if I change it to 3 and now again run this code, so now this case is true, so this will check for 1, 2 and when the 3 is came and it checks the cases 3 of the date in the switch, so it will print that statement and just break this and do not check the other ones. So we got the today is 3 date in here. So that was switching on the integer value. Now remove this code from here and change this date to day and also change its value to Monday. And now there will be an error just because we have to change the type also to string, just because we cannot assign a string value to an integer type variable, and that is because Dart is type-safe language. So now we will switch on this day and we will check different cases to check which day is for Monday. Like we will say case 1, not 1 but the case Monday. For the Monday we will print today is Monday and simply break it. And before this Monday we are going to have the case of Sunday and we will do today is Sunday. Now copy this Monday case and paste it right after this 5 more times, like we got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And now change this to Monday to Tuesday and paste it also in here. And if the case was Wednesday, so we will say today is Wednesday. And if the case was Thursday, so we will print today is Thursday. And if the case was Friday, so we will do today is Friday. And if the case was Saturday, so we will say today is Saturday. And now the code is not formatted, so simply click this format and our code will be formatted. Now here we have the Monday, and when we run this the case will be matched to this second statement and we will get today is Monday. Now when we change it to let's say Friday and run it, so we will get the case print statement of this Friday. Now the case match Friday, we got today is Friday. And you can also make your simple calculator using these switch statements, or also you can do it by the if else condition statements. So now let's remove it and simply build a small calculator using these switch statements. So first of all, here we are going to have a string variable and its name will be operator equals to let's say add, and then we will switch on this operator. And if the case of the operator was add, so what we will do here, we are also going to have 2 more variables that will be of type int num1 equal to 5 and int num2 equal to 10. And if the case was add, simply do print num1 plus num2 and simply break the statement. Now copy this, and there is an error just because we have to put the colon in here. Now copy this statement and we are going to have the fourth statement just because we are going to build a simple calculator. So paste it right here 4 times. So if the case was subtract, so simply subtract num1 from num2. And if the case was multiply, simply multiply num1 with num2, and this will be in the string and also the colon in here. And also for this fourth we are going to have divide and also divide num1 by num2. So that's it. Now format the code and the case is addition. So now when we run this we will get the output of 15. You can see we got 15. Now when we change the operator to subtract, and when we also change the values of num1 and num2, let's say 20 minus 10 from 20, so we will get 10. Let's make it 25, so we will get the 15 answer, and this case will be true. Now run this and we will get the answer of 15. So you can see we got 15, and also change it to multiply, so we will get the answer of this third statement. Multiply 25 by 10, we got 250. So that's a really simple calculator. You can also do it using if-else statement, like to check if the operator was equal to add, simply add the num1 and num2, and if the operator was equal to minus, simply minus the number 1 from number 2. So that's how you can use switch statements in the Dart programming language, and the switch statements compare integers and string instead of booleans like the if-else conditional statements. So now it's time to go for loops. So the loops are used whenever we want some certain instructions to repeat, and in Dart programming language we have the loops of for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So we have these three kinds of loops in our Dart programming language. So first of all, the for loop. The for loop is the loop which executes the block of code for a specified number of times, and the syntax of for loop is, first we have to specify the for keyword, and then inside this we are going to have a variable of type int, and then we are going to have a condition check, and then we are going to have an counter or incrementer of that I variable, and then we are going to have a body of that loop where we will do something. So that's the syntax of our for loop, and now this loop will run 5 times just because we have specified the I value equal to 0, and whenever this loop is less than 5, so anytime this will increment this using this counter and will run this loop 5 times. So now we will print inside this, print hello, and run this code, and we will get this hello 5 times, and in the console when we run this code you can see we got the hello 5 times. So as I said, the for loop is a loop which executes a block of code for a specified number of times. So we execute our hello print statement 5 times. And next we have the same for loop, but in this we will use the in keyword. That will be for loop and used in keyword in here. So this for in loop is used when we want to iterate over an list or an array in some other programming languages. Like let's suppose we have the list of numbers equal to from 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. We got these list of numbers, and when we want to iterate this list of numbers we will do for number in numbers and print the number. So we have iterate over this array and its type will be int number. So that's it. Now we have iterate over this array, and let's comment this for loop and run this code. So we will get these values just like in this sequence. So we got 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50 one by one. So that's how we iterate over on list or in arrays in other programming languages using for loops and this in keywords. So what we are doing in here, we are saying a single number in numbers. So this for loop will execute according to the elements in this list. So we have the 5 elements in this list, so this loop executes 5 times and each time it gives us the single number from this list. So that's how using for loop we can iterate over a list, and you will get to know more about these for loops in the future videos when we go for real app development. And here comes the real scenarios of iterating over a list of documents in our Firebase, Firestore and some other database just like this. So you will get to know more about this in the future videos. So one of the common example of for loop can also be like, let's comment this out, and suppose we want to print a table. Like let's say we have an int variable and the number is equal to 6. Like we want to print the table of 6. So for that we can use the for loop. Like first we will say for int I equal to 0. First we have I equal to 0, or let's say this will start from 1, so we will set the I equal to 1, and then here we will check if the I is less than 11. So from 1 to 11 is 10, and we will increment this I, and in the body of for loop we will print, first of all we will print that number 10 times, and this will be like this number, so that will be our number 6. Each time here it will comes, and here we will do x means multiply, and here we will do I means the number which will increment each time when the loops runs. Like first this will be 1, and next time this will be 2, and next time this will be 3rd, and after this will be 4. So each time this loops runs, this will execute, this will increment the I one time, and here will comes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and till 10. And next we are going to have an equal to, and here we will multiply the number with I. Each time we will multiply this 6 number with the number which increments over the time when the loop runs. Like when you run this code and look at the output, so each time we are getting 6 just because we have specified the 6 in here, so that's the number we are getting in here. And the I is the number which increments over the time when the loops runs. You can see first the I was 1, then the I was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and till 10. And first of all we got the number multiplied with the 1 I. First of all the I was 1, so it multiplied by 1, so when the 6 number multiply by 1 first time, so we got the answer of 6, and next time when the loop runs, so the number was still 6, and when this multiply by 2, so this time this multiply by 2 just because this was the second time of the loop, so we got the 12, and third time when the loop runs, so the I becomes 3, and here the number 6 multiplied by 3, so we got the 18 answer. And just like this, at the fourth time the 6 multiplied by 4 and we got 24, and then with 5 we got 30, and with 6 we got 36, and so on. And like this we can print some other table, like when we put 7 in here and run this, so we will get the table of 7 like this. So that was one of the common example of using for loop and printing an table just like this. And one more thing here we can do, if you comment this out also and uncomment this first for loop, here we have the statements of break and continue. The break statement is already used in the switch statement from the previous topic of switch, like break or terminate the switch to stop the other checks and just return the value which already has in the particular switch statement on which the condition satisfied. So here we can also do inside the for loop, we can check if the loops runs 3 times and we got the I equal to 3. So when the I becomes 3, simply print sorry and break or terminate the loop. So first the loop will start from 0 and 3 times it will print hello, and then when the I becomes equal to 3, this will print one sorry and will terminate the loops, and this will not print 2 more hellos as we have specified 5 in here. So now run this loop to check this out. So we got 3 times hello just because it starts from 0, we got 1 hello, from 1 we got second hello, and from 2 we got third hello, and when the I becomes equal to 3, we got the sorry and the loops terminate, and then nothing executes and the loops end. So that's how this break statement works. And the continue statement works like just to skip that particular number which we have specified in the else condition, in the if condition, and simply print the other one. So now when I run this, so this give us first 3 hellos, like from 0, 1, 2, and when this become equal to 3, this give us 0 and continues and give us the next hello which was remaining. And that was also it for this continue statement. That continue is used for just to skip that number which we have specified in the if condition. So that was also for break and continue and you will get to know more about this in more details when you go for real app development of Flutter. So that was it. Now let's remove all of this code for loop in here and start working with while loop. So first of all, the while loops runs until and unless the specified condition is true. Like let's suppose we have an int variable of num equal to 5, and here we have the keyword of while, and here we will check while 5 is less than 10. So, or let's make it more precise, make it 0 and make it num and make this 5, and we got the 0 value in the num, or let's make it num1. So we got this num1 in here having the value of 0. We are checking while the num1 value is less than 5, so you have to simply print the dart and simply increment the num1 each time when the loop ends. So this loop will also run 5 times, and when the num becomes equal to 5, so the loop will terminate, and this will print the dart 5 times. So now run this code and we will get the dart 5 times. So you can see we got this dart 5 times, but when you forget this num1 and do not increment this just like this, so your loop will becomes an infinity state and will never be ended, and this can also freeze your system, and then you have to restart your IDE, or in the DartPad you have to restart this browser. So while using while loops, not forget to increment or decrement at the end. So that was the while loop until and unless this condition is not satisfied, so the body will be executed that times which we have specified in here. And the do while loop is really simple. What it does is first it executes the code and then it checks for this condition. Like let's remove this, or let's not remove this. Like let's do the do and open body and cut this body from this while and paste it right here. Now also remove the body from this while and cut this and paste it right here, and also put the semicolon in here, and now format this code. So what it do is first it do and perform this work, and while this condition is true. Now when we run this code, so the output will be similar as we had for the while. So that's how while and do while works, and that was the basic concepts of for loop, while loop and do while loop. So that was it also for the basic concepts of loops in the Dart programming language, and you will get to know more about these in the future videos when you go for real app development. And next in our Dart programming language, we have the concepts of functions. The functions is a set of code that together perform a specific task. The functions are used to break a large number of code into small pieces of code and reuse it when needed. And to perform a specific task on a function need to be called. So the syntax of the function will be something like this. First we are going to have the return type of the function, and then we are going to have the function name, and then the parentheses, and then if it accepts parameters or not, and then simply return some value from it, and that's the body curly braces of the function. So now the main is also our entry point function which executes our Dart code. So outside this main function we will create another function. Its return type will be, first of all, let's say int, and its name will be sum of numbers, and it is going to accept the parameters of int num1 and int num2 and open body, and this is going to return the num1 plus num2. So that's an function which return type is int, meaning that it will returns the integer value, and the name of the function is the sum of number. It accepts num1 and num2, and simply in the return it returns the sum of these two numbers. And now when we remove this comment statement from here and run this code, so we will get nothing in the console, just because, as I said, to perform a specific task on a function must be called. So we will call our sum of numbers function in our main function, so it will be executed and will give us the result in our console. So in the main function we will do sum of function, or not function but numbers, and that's it. Now here there will be an error. In the error you can see in the line 3, 2 positional argument accepted but found 0. So it means we have to also pass integer first value and the second value, so that will return the addition or the sum of these values. So let's pass 5 and 5. So now when we run this, so we will still get nothing in the console, just because we have called this function but we are not printing it somewhere to display it in our console. So we will do int result equal to sum of numbers. So we store our two numbers sum in the result function, which is also of type int, and then we will print this result. And when we run this, now we will get the sum of these two numbers, that will be 10. So now the sum of numbers function perform a specific task, that is to return the sum of these two numbers. And now whenever we need the sum of two numbers somewhere else in our code, so we don't have to write every time like we are going to have two variables and then add them, and then when we need them in the other module, so we have to copy them and paste them in here, and then if we need it in the other module, so we will copy that and paste them in the other module. So in order to avoid this repetition of code, we are going to have a single sum of numbers function, and whenever we need the sum of two numbers, we will simply call that function and simply pass the values and print or return the result that we needed. So that's how it breaks large number of code into small pieces and reuse it whenever it's needed. So that's the function which returns the sum of two numbers. So we also can have the function of int calculator. So this is our simple calculator which is going to accept three parameters that will be of type, first will be int num1, and the second will be int num2, and the third will be string operator. Now open body. Here we will check, or we can also use the switch statement, but that we have used in the switch statement. So now let's also try it using the if condition. So we will do if the operator was equal to addition. So what you have to do, simply return the num1 plus num2, and else if the operator was equal to minus, simply what you have to do, return num1 minus num2. And in the else if, we will do if the operator was equal to multiply. So what you have to do, simply return the num1 multiplied by num2. And in the else if, we will do if the operator was equal to divide, simply return num1 divided by num2. And in the else condition, if none of these operator has match, we will simply return 0. And we can also reduce our work by changing the return type of this calculator to void, meaning that it will return nothing. So instead of return, we will simply print directly the num1 and num2 addition. Print this, and also copy this and paste it right here, and also in here, and also in here, and also for the else condition. Now only change the signs: minus, multiply, divide, and if none of these condition has matched, we will say invalid operator. That's it. Now copy this calculator name and simply paste it right here, and simply pass the values. Now 3 positional arguments are required, so our num1 is going to be, let's say, 5 and 5, and operator will be, let's say, multiply. So 5 multiply by 5, and when we run this, so this will give us the output. Now this time we don't have to store it in the result or some other variable, just because we have the void type means nothing, and we simply print this just like this. Now run this code, so we will get the output 5 multiply 5, 25. So we got 10, the result of this sum of two numbers, and 25 by multiplying 5 multiplied by 5, and that specific calculation is performed in this calculator function. Now this is our calculator functions, which only perform the calculation of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and these calculations of. Now let's divide 30 on 5. So this will give us the output of 6, and that's it. Now when we pass some other operator in here like hash, that is not operator. Now when we run this, so now the else condition will set invalid operator, and that's how this calculator works. And that was it for functions, to break our large number of code into small pieces and reuse it whenever it is required in some module. So that was also it for the functions of Dart programming language, and you will get to know more about this in detail in the future videos. So we talked about Dart collections in the starting of the video and in the section of data types, but that was not it for the collections. The collections are really important concepts that every developer must know more about them. So let's explore Dart collections a bit more in depth. So up until now we have talked about only two collections, that were list and map. But now we are going to talk about one more collection of Dart programming language, that is set, and you will get to know about it in a while. So first let's explore the list collection of Dart programming language. So let's create a list. So we got a list of numbers, and now list has some properties and some methods. First we are going to explore the properties of list. The first property of list is numbers dot first, to get the first element from the list. So now run this code to see the output of this program. So in the console you can see we got one output. Just because we have done numbers dot first, we use the property of list which returns the list first element. And list has some other properties, and the other property of the list is numbers dot length, to check the size of the length. By default the indices or the index of the list starts from 0, like this element index is 0 and this element index is 1, this is 2, 3 and 4, just like this. But the length returns the size of a list. So now run this, so this will give us 5, just because we have only 5 elements in the list. You can see we got 1, the first element of the list from this first property, and from the length we got the 5, the length or the size of the list. And we have one more property of list, that is numbers dot last, to get the last element of the list. Now run this, so we will get the 5 again, just because that's the last element of the list. And we have some other properties of list like this, the numbers dot reverse. This will give us all the numbers in reverse order, like first, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And these are the properties of list is empty and is not empty. To check the condition on list, if the list is empty, do something else. If it's not empty, do something else. So you have learned about the if-else condition statements, so you might apply these statements or properties of list on the list. Like we can check the condition in here. If the numbers dot is empty, if the list was empty, the numbers list is empty. So what you have to do, print list is empty. And in the else condition, if it was not empty, simply print list is not empty. So for now let's comment it out, and also these properties to check only first these properties, and then we will go for this condition. So now first also comment out these to only check this reverse. So now run this, so we will get all the elements of this number in the reverse order. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. So that's how this reverse property of the list works. Now let's comment this out and uncomment this is empty. So this will give us the output of false just because our numbers list is not empty. Run this and we will get false. You can see it in here. But when we remove the elements from the list and again run this, so we will get true just because now list is empty. You can see here we got true. Now Ctrl Z to undo and also comment this property. Now uncomment this property and run this. So this output will also be true just because the list is not empty. You can see we got. And now when we remove the elements from the list and run it again, so this will give us false just because now the list is empty and we are saying list is not empty. So that's how these two properties works. Now also comment this out and uncomment this if condition. Now run this. So this will print list is empty just because we have checked the condition. If it was empty, so simply print this, otherwise this. So the list is empty, so it is saying list is empty. And if it was not empty, like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now run this, so we will get the else condition satisfied, list is not empty. You can see it in here. So that was some properties of list. And now let's talk about the methods of list. But before this, let me show you one more thing by removing or commenting these properties from here. And in here I can update the list on the particular index, like I can say the numbers on index 2, make it equal to 10, and now print the numbers and also make it numbers. So what we are doing in here, we are setting on the index 2 put the 10 element, or that will become the element on the index 2. Now when we run this, so 0, 1, 2 in the place of 3 we will get 10. You can see we got 1, 2 and there was 3, so we got 10 just because we have just updated the list on the index 2 and we put the number or element 10 in here. So like this we can also update like numbers on index 4, make it equal to 20. So the index 4 we have is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So means on the place of 5 just put this 20. Now run this, so we'll get 20 in here. You can see we got 20. But in case if you do on the 6 index and again run this, so this will say the range error just because we don't have the index 6 in here. We have only 4 indexes starting from 0 to 4. So that's how you can update the list on the index. And now let's talk about the list methods. So let's have some methods, like let's comment this out also and cut this from here and paste it right here. And now list has some methods. The first method of list is numbers.add. So add, and here it will say, if you call this method on this numbers main list, so it will say error, positional argument expected but found 0. So it means we have to pass some element to add this in the numbers list. So let's say we pass 20. So this element will be added at the 5 index, like right after this 5, and this 5 is on the index 4. Now run this, so we will get 20 after this 5. You can see it in here. And now we can modify this like this, like numbers on index 5, make it 10. So first we add 20 and then after this we make it 10 and then we will print it. So when we run this, so we will get 10 instead of 20. So that's it, we add it and then we update it, then we print it. So now let's remove this, update, and that was the first method of list. And the next method is, let's comment this out. The next method of list is add all, and it is saying again one positional argument expected but found 0. So add all except the list of numbers or any type that you want to add in the numbers. So you have to put the large brackets, and inside this you have to put like 6, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now when we run this, so we will get all these elements right after this 5. So you can see we had only 5 and we got 10. Like if I print the numbers in here and now run this. So first, when the add all method has not been called, so we had only the 5 elements in the list, and now when we call the add all and add all these list of numbers in this numbers, and then when we print it, so we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 also in that numbers list. So that was the second method of list, to add all or add the list of numbers or any type that you want to add. Like if I also want to add some string in here and say apple, and also want to add some true, false and 4.5 etc, and now run this, so we will get also these in these numbers list. And when this executes and gives the output of all of these data in the list. So that's how this add all works, and also this add. Now also let's comment this out and let's move to the second method of list. So the second method of list is the remove method. It also required one positional arguments and we will pass 4. Now let's run this and we will get the output of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this remove the 4 element from here. The element we want to remove from the list, so simply we have to pass that element, so this will remove that element from the list. But in case we pass the element 10 and the 10 element is not exist in the number list, so when we run this, so this will give us the same list which we have the numbers, but this execute or this function do not work just because the 10 element is not in the list. But when we uncomment this and now run this, so now after coming to this remove method, first we got the number list. When we print it first time, we will get these 5 elements list, and then we add this data in the list, and now it has 10, so it removed 10 and then it will give us the numbers in here. So when these numbers are print on this print statement, so there will not be the 10 element just because we have just removed it using this remove method. So now run this and we will get first the numbers 5, and you can see we got all the numbers we have added in here except the 10, just because we just removed after adding it in the list. So that's how this remove method of the list works. So now next method of list is remove add. So now let's comment these two methods from here, and next method is numbers dot remove add. So this method will remove the particular element on the specific index. Like I want to remove an element on the specific index that is 0. So on 0 index we have one element. So first it will print all the list and then it will remove the element on the 0 index, then it will print it. Now run this, so we will get 1 from 1 to 5 and then from 2 to 5 just because we have just removed the element on the 0 index. And in case if we do 7 and the 7 index is not in here, so definitely this will throw again the range error just because we are removing the element on the index that index does not exist or not in here, and it is something like the exception out of bound or the range error. And with this we have one more method of list, that is numbers dot remove last, to remove the last element of the list, and it do not require any element just because this will directly remove the last element. You can see in this documentation, remove and returns the last object in the list, as list is an order collection of objects, or we can also call these elements. So now run this, so we will get from 1 to 4 just because this remove last will remove the 5 from here. So that was also it for the remove last method, and here we have one more method of list, that is numbers dot for each. So this is also like the for loop that we have used the for in loop. to iterate an list. So this is called an anonymous function like the for each, and inside this we have to pass an parameter. Let's name it element, and it can be anything like only e and open body. So what we are doing here, we are saying from numbers list for each element, print that particular element. Now run this and we will get all the elements iterated one by one. So you can see first we got this number in here, and then we got the iterated numbers one by one, and then we got the list again just because of this print statement. So that's also called for each, the anonymous function of list. And this element can be only e or also anything that you want to name your each element in the list. So that was also the function of or the method of the list. So that's the most basic and important concepts about list that you must know if you are Dart developer. So that was it for the collection list. Now let's talk about the Dart maps a bit more in depth. A map is an object that stores data in the form of key and value pairs. And same like the list, the map has some properties and some functions. So now let's remove these list data from here, and now it's time to go for this map. So first let's create the variable of a map, and name it user data equals to, we represent a map using curly braces, put semicolon, and there we are going to have key and value pairs. So key will be, let's say, username, and the username is John, and his age is 25, and we separate key and value pairs using the colon, and we also separate a pair of key value using comma, same like the list. So that is our map object having two key and value pairs. So now let's talk about the properties of map. The first property of map is, let's say, user data, our variable dot keys, to get all the keys of that map object. So now run this, and we got username and age, the keys of that user data object. And we can also do user data dot values to get only values of that user data map object. So now run this, and right after this username and age, we will also get the John and 25, the values of a map object. And next, as we had for the list, we can also get the length of a map or the size of the map. So user data dot length, so its length is 2 just because we have only 2 key value of pairs. So we got 2 in here just because we have at time only username and age. And if we had like some address New York, and now run this, so we will get 3 in here. You can see we got 3, the key address, the value New York in here. And also we have the same methods like is empty and also is not empty, like to check if the map is empty or not. Now if I print and say user data dot is empty, so it will return false just because the user data object map is not empty. Now when I run this, and we got false, and if I say is not empty, and simply it will say true just because the user data is not empty. So that was some properties of map. And now let's move to the methods of map. So map has some quite similar methods as we had for the list. So now let's comment these out, and the first method we are going to have is user data dot add all, and it accepts a map object, and this will add all the values inside that object in our user data map object. Like as we had for the list, the add all method except the whole list, and for the map, the user data add all except the map object. So we are going to have, let's remove this data just because it's getting longer from here. So we got only username in here, and now we are going to add the age, and now we are going to add age 25 and also the address New York using the add all method. So we will get the same result, but when we run this will not give us the output just because we had to print the user data also. So now run this and we will get the map object having all these values in the map. We got username John, age 25, address New York, and if we print the user data in here, so the user data is going to have only one key value pair, that is username John. And when we use this add also, we got all these methods in that user data map object also. So you can see in the console we got the output as expected. And that was one method of the map object. So the next method is going to have user data dot clear to clear or remove everything from this map. Now run this. First of all, we will get the user data having username and John, and next when we call the clear, and after this when we print this user data we got the empty map. So that was the second method of the map. And the next methods of map objects are searching methods, like this was to insert data in the map object, and next methods are to search a specific key or value in the map object and return some data according to that. So that methods are contains key and also the contains value. So we are going to check them using if-else conditional statements. So we will say if the user data dot contains the key of username. So in the body we will do user data on username, make it equals to Steve. So what we are doing here, we are saying if the user data contains the username key, simply update that key value to Steve, as we have set it John, so it will update it to Steve. And in the else condition, what you have to say to the user, simply print the key you are searching for does not exist, just like this. Now run this and the output will be, you can see we got John and next we got the Steve, just because the username exists. Now let's change this username to only name. So now what will be the expected output? We know that this will be the else condition, just because the first condition is not true. The contains key is a boolean method of map, whether this map contains the given key or not. If it do not contains the key, simply the else will be executed and its return type is boolean. So it means in this case it's false, just because this do not contain the username, as we have changed it to only name. Now run this and we will get the output, the key you are searching for does not exist. And the data is print as same as that we have in here using this print statement again. And next we have the contains value. If it contains the any key value John, so what you have to do, simply update the username field or key to Steve Jobs. Otherwise print the same message, the key you are searching for does not exist. So in case the name key has the value John, so it means the John exists, so it will update the name. This time this is going to update the name to Steve Jobs. Now run this and we will get the output name Steve Jobs in this print statement, as this condition was true. So these are just the Boolean methods of data to check if the or map object contains value or key, then perform some action on that map object. And now if I change this John to, let's say John S, the capital S. So now this is not the key present in here in the map object. When I run this, so we will get this answer and the data will be printed as same as we have in the user data object. You can see we got this message and the same data as we have in here. So that was it also for the contains key and contains value methods of the map object. Now let's also comment this out, and the last method of key we are going to use is user data dot remove the specific key value pair and name. Now this will remove the specific key value pair which names is name. So now run this. First time it will print the object having these key value pairs, and next time this will give us the empty just because we have just removed this key value pair using the name. Using the key we removed the key value pair, and just like this. Now let's put the age 25 and now run this. So this will only get the age 25 just because we removed the key value pair using the name key. So that was also it for the map properties and map methods. But one more thing here you can also do, as we had for the list, to insert some data in the map object. Let's comment this print statement also, and in here you can also do user data on address, make it equal to New York. So it means it also insert one more field or one more key and value pair in the user data object. So let's also print the user data in here to see before and after of this user data. So let's cut this and say before and print this user data, and also in here cut this and say after user data. Now run this. So we will get the answer or the result of the before was this same, and after when we use the address to New York, so we also got the address inserted in the user data map object. So that was also it for the map collections of Dart programming language. Now it's time to go for set. So now let's talk about the set collection of Dart programming language. So as we had the list collection and order collection of objects, the set is quite opposite to that. A set is an unordered collection of objects, and with this the set does not allow storing duplicate values, like every value must be unique and will not be duplicated. We can declare a set like this. First we have to do set, and let's say set data equals to, and the set is represented in the curly braces. Now inside this we are going to have 1 2 3 4, and that's good, but we can't do 4 again. And when we print this set data and run this, we will get only 1 2 3 4, but this 4 is ignored, and it is also saying two elements in a set literal should not be equal. So it is saying change or remove the duplicate element, and the compiler itself also ignored this 4 just like this. And also we can store the user true, false, 5.5 and also 5.5. So this will also be ignored, and when we do one more false in here, so this will also be ignored. And if we do one more user string in here, so this will also be ignored and will give us only the unique 1 values. Like you can see we got from 1 to 4, and this user is ignored, this is also ignored, and this 5.5 or this is 5.5, and this will be ignored this time. So only the unique values will be printed, but the values that are duplicated should be ignored. So that's how we deal with the set. And if we compare it with the list, we have the list and say list data equals to, we represent a list in the square brackets or large brackets 1 2 3 4 and 5, and we can have 5 so many times. And if we print this list data. So this will give us the same data or elements we have in the list and will not be ignored. So that's the difference between list and set. And now let's remove the list data from here and let's try to explore the properties and functions of set. So first we are going to have the properties of list or set. But before printing or doing something with the properties, let's remove these duplicate datas and other data from here to make this set more simple. So we have the data from 1 to 5 integer values in our set object variable. So the properties of set are quite similar to the list and map. Like we have the properties of length to check the size of the set, and also we have the property of first and last to get the first and last element of the set as we had for the list, and also the is empty to check if the set is empty or not, and also is not empty, and that's it. These are some basic properties of set. The first one is to get the size, first element, last element, check if it's empty or check if it's not empty. And then we have the methods of set. The first method of set is same as we had for the list, set data dot add 10. So now run this, so we will get the 10 also in the list. You can see it in here. But if you try to add 5 and run this, so we will get only from 1 to 5 and the 5 will not be duplicated. And this was the same method, and one more method is also same as we had for the list, like set data dot add all, and this is going to accept as we had for the map and list the object of list, and the data will be, let's say, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. And now when we run this, so we have added the list or the set object, so we will get from 1 to 10. And if we got the value duplicated, like let's say we have the values of 1, 2, 3 also, and now when we run this, so we will not get these 1, 2, 3 again, but the unique values from 1 to 10. So that was the second method of set. And the third method of set is the contains, to check if it contains this specific value. So we will use it in the if condition. We will say if the set data dot contains the 5. So what you have to do, set data dot remove 5, and this remove is also a method to remove a specific element from the set as we had for the list. And in the else condition, if it do not contain, simply print element does not exist. Now that's it. Run this, so we will get from 1 to 4 just because it contains the 5 and simply it removes it. And what if we do 7 in here? Now it will check for 7. If it contains 7, then you have to remove the 5. So it do not contain 7, so it means the first condition is false, and we will get this output, element does not exist, and simply our data again which we have in the set data variable. So we got the print statement, element does not exist just because the first condition was false, and we got again our set data in here. So that was also the contains method. Now let's comment it out. And the next method of set is the difference. So meaning that the difference between two sets. So first we are going to change the name of this first set to first set, and we are going to have the second set, its name will be second set, which will be equal to the set of 1, 2, 3 and then some other values like 6, 7 and 8. That's it. Now we are going to check the difference between these two sets. So first set dot difference second set. So it will check the difference between two sets and it will remove the similar values and will give us the first set remaining values. Like run this code, so we got 4 and 5. It removes 1 2 3 from here and give us the first set difference, that is 4 and 5. And if you do second set difference first set, so now it will remove the same these values, but this time this is not going to give us 4 and 5 but will give us 6 7 and 8. Now run this and we got 6 7 and 8 value just because this is the second set difference the first set. And when you click this difference and see in the documentation what this difference method of set does, it creates a new set with elements of this that are not in the other. So it creates a new set of the values that does not exist in the other list. So 6 7 8 values are not in the first list, so it gives us this list and remove the similar values from here. And the same was for the situation if we done the first set difference second set and we got the 4 and 5 values. So that was it for the difference method of set. And next method of set is the method of, let's say, first set dot element at. So this will give us the element on the specific index, let's say 0, and also remove the print statement and print only first set. Now run this, so we will get the element which is on 0 index. So we got the set data from 1 to 5 just because we have to do this in the print statement. In here we don't have to print the first set directly, so that's it. Now run this, so we will get the first element on index, remove the semicolon from here, and now run this. So we got 1 just because that is on the 0 index. If you do the 6 and there is not the 6 index in here, 0 1 2 3 4 nor 5 neither 6, so we will get the range error in. You can see it in here. And if we do 3, so 0 1 2 and 3, we will get the 4 result in the console. So that was also the method of set. And there is one more method of set is, let's comment this out and let's do first set dot for each element in the list, not in the list but the set, and give us that element and simply print this element. So we got all the element of the set and simply print them one by one. That is for each invokes action on each element of the iterable in the iteration order. So it will iterate on each element in the set and will give us one by one each element. Now run this and we will get each element of the set one by one. So that was also one of the method of the set as we had for the list. And now one of the interesting methods of set are, let's do them in here. First set dot union second set, and also print them. Cut this from here and simply print, paste it in here and put semicolon outside. So what is union? The union is to combine the values of two sets and give us only one set. So these two first and second list will be combined and will give us the values of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. Now run this, so we will get the combined set from 1 to 8, and these values are ignored just because that's combined and the similarities are ignored. And next we have the intersection in list. So we will do first set dot intersection second set inside the parentheses of the intersection. So it will give us only the similar values in the first and second list, and the values that are not similar in both lists will be ignored. So now run this. In the second list we are going to have the from 1 to 3 values just because these are similar in both lists. You can see we got this intersection and this union. And one more method is remove at method of the set to remove a specific element on the specific index. Like if I pass in here the 2 and print it, So this will remove the 0, 1, 2, these 3 elements from the set. So that's how this works. So that was also it for the collection set of Dart programming language. So along with this journey, we learned so many concepts of Dart programming language, and most importantly, the collection data types, list, maps, and sets. So now, don't you think we should explore them a bit more? Yes, we should, because we have to. Anyways, let's talk about one of the most important concepts of Dart, that is generics. Well, what is it? Generics enables stronger type checking. Again a question. What kind of stronger type checking? So by default, Dart collections are heterogeneous type, meaning that a single Dart collection can hold the values of several data types, as you have seen in the previous sections of collections, list, maps, and sets. However, a Dart collection can also store the homogeneous or the values of the same type. That's where the generics comes in. The generics are the way to support type safety implementation for all Dart collections, and a pair of angular brackets are used to declare the type safe collection. So we have this empty main method. To declare a generic collection, we have to do, let's say, list, and as I said, a pair of angular brackets are used to declare the type safe collection or the generic collection. List of string, list data equals to an empty list. So now this list is going to contain only the string elements, not the integer, double, booleans, etc. as we had for the only list. List data equals to an empty list, and let's say we can store a string and also 1, 2, 3 and true, false, 2.5, etc. But in case of the generic list or the type safe collection, there must be only string elements in this list. So we can store the elements like str1, str2 and str3. But I can't do here like 1, 2 and 3. This will tell us directly in the compile time the element of type int cannot be assigned to the list type string. So that's how we declare the type safe collection or a generic collection. So the generics are mostly used when we want the specific data type data in one list. Like I only want to store the string data in this list. I don't want to store the booleans, doubles, integers, etc. But I only want to store the string data in this list. So simply what I have to do is to put simply these angular brackets and simply put the type of the values that I want to store. Like if I change this type to int, so we will get the compile time error. Now it will say the element of type string cannot be assigned to the list type integer. So now I have to change this str1, 2, 3 to 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 5, etc. to overcome this error. So that's how we make our collections generic. So that was only for lists. Now also for the sets, like sets and set of type double, and its name will be set data equals to. So now this is not going to store the data of string or boolean like this, but instead it is going to store the data like 2.5, 4.5, 9.9, just like this. And also for the map, as map has key and value pairs, so we will do for the map, and the key of the map will be string and the value can be dynamic, or also you can specify the only string. So this map string dynamic is the JSON type, like the key and value pairs. If you're familiar with the JSON, these are the key and value pairs, and you can also do the map string and string also. And this first is key and the second is value. So now let's name our map the map data equals to, and now our key will be string listen name, and our value of the key can be of any type like 2.5, true, and also false, and also the string like John and anything, just because the value is dynamic. And also let's say age 5. So that's how we declare the generic collections in our Dart programming language. And if I want to add some data in this list of int, let's say list data dot add, and I want to add some data as a string like str. So we will get the error just because we are adding the data in the list data, which is type safe, which is int, which you can only store the integer data types, and I am adding the data of type string. You can see we are getting again the compile time error. The argument of type string cannot be assigned to the parameter type int. So we also cannot specify or add any data in the type safe collections. So that was the generics of Dart or the type safe collections, and you will get to know more about these in the future videos. So that was it for the Dart generics or type safe collections. Now we are going to talk about one of the most important concepts of Dart programming language, that is exception handling. So you may be heard about the terms that are exception and also the error. So what are they? First we are going to discuss about the exception, and then we will go for discussing the error. Exception. An exception should be thrown for regular expected flow and is intended to be caught, meaning that we can know about the flow that it can throw an exception, and we can also catch that particular exception. To understand it more clearly, let's suppose the authentication of the user in an application. So we know that if user pass wrong email or username, so it's the possible exception that in this case we can say the user not found on this email or username. So in this authentication case, we knew that the user can pass wrong email or username. So then we can throw some exception to tell the user that user not found on that email or username. So that was the exception which can be caught and also expected in some function that are performing some specific task, as we have talked about the authentication of user. And on the other hand, the error should be thrown for unexpected program flow and should not be caught, but it's addressed by the programmer. Like suppose you assert something and say this variable cannot have this value, but still if you pass it, so this will be an error or assertion failed error. And some other error can be like if you pass some wrong value, and this will be the error. So that was a bit theory. Now let's understand it by doing it practically. So Dart provides us the try catch to handle some exceptions in our code, and with this we have the finally, which is some body which executes right after the try catch block. So you will also get to know about this. And next we have the on clause, meaning that if an exception is expected, that if we know that particular exception can be thrown, so we can use the on clause. So how we can use it, you will get to know about this in a while. So first of all, let's suppose a program. Suppose we have a function of type integer and its name is getUserAge, and it accepts one parameter of type integer and its name is age. And then in the body of that function we are checking if the age was less than 0, so throw an exception and pass this string wrong. This throw keyword is used to throw some exception, and this exception is a marker interface implemented by all the exceptions in the core library, like the format exception, IO exception, timeout exception, etc. So I set the marker interface to the exception. So what is an interface? You will get to know about this when you go for the object-oriented programming concept. So for now, let's keep it like this, and in the else condition of this function, what we are doing, simply returning the age if it was greater than 0. So now if we click this exception, we got the documentation. The exception is an interface or an abstract class which has a dynamic message in its constructor. And you can also read it more about this exception by going to the Open Library docs. So this was the function. Now we will call this function in our main function to execute it and get the answer. So in here we will use the try catch block to handle this exception in case if the age was less than 0. So we will use try catch block. So we will say try the get user age and pass some age, let's say 5, and that's it. And in the catch block, catch some exception if exist. We will name our exception only e, and also open body for this as we have for the try. And here we will print age must be greater than 0, and also print this e, which will be this dynamic message passed in the constructor parentheses of this exception. So in here we have passed the 5, meaning that this first condition is not true. So we will get simply the answer age returned by this function. So when we run this, we will get nothing just because we are simply returning it but not printing it. So to print it, we will simply store this get user age in the variable of type int, and we will name it result, and then we will print this result. That's it. Now run this code, so we will get the age 5, and that was the expected answer. But in case if we pass some age which is less than 0, means -2. So now when we run this, we will get the exception age must be greater than 0, exception wrong. So that was our exception and was in the expected flow, that it was expected that it can happen. So if it can happen, so it means we can also catch this exception. So that was one example of exception. And the second example of this exception can be, let's suppose we have this function. Its return type is double, meaning that it will return the decimal value. Its name is divide two numbers, and it accepts two parameters num1 and num2. Inside the body of this function, we are checking if the num2 was equal to 0, meaning that if num1 divided by 0, so we will throw the integer division by 0 exception, and in the else condition, if the num2 was not equal to 0, simply we will return the division answer of 1 divided by 2, or the num1 divided by num2. So that's what this function does. So now we will comment out the first try block, the first try catch block in our main, and then we will do for this divide two numbers. Or let's say instead of commenting them out, let's remove these values from here and call the values of divided by 2 num function. So here we will do double result equals to divide 2 nums, meaning that this function, and then we have to pass the num1 and num2. So let's say we pass 50 and 5, and in the catch what we will do, simply print cannot divide on 0, and also print this e, and with this also print this result. So now in this divide two nums, the first condition is false, meaning that the num2 is not equal to 0, and in the else condition, this condition is true. So it will divide 50 by 5 and we will get the answer 10. Now let's run this and check what is the answer. So we got 10, 50 divided by 5. But in case if we got the num2 0, so what will be the expected exception? This will be our integer division by 0 exception. Now run this, so we will get this exception. You can see we got cannot divide it on 0, integer division by 0 exception. So that was for our exception handling try catch block. And then we have the finally. The finally executes right after the try and catch block. So as we have for try and catch, so right after this catch body where the catch body ends, so we can pass here the finally and open the body for it, and we can print it here finally. the handling of exception ints. So that's it. Run this. So after the exception printed, we will get the finally also. So that's just the finally, which executes right after this try and catch. And next we have the on clause. This on clause is used when we are sure about the exception, that what exception can be thrown from an expected from an function. So let's remove this finally, and here let's also remove this catch block from here. We can say on integer divided by 0. We are saying try some value on this exception, catch the same e, and simply print cannot divide on 0. That's it. Now run this. So we will get the integer division by 0 exception in here. Let's hide it, and you can see we got this exception in here. So that was also for the on clause. And the example of error will be like, let's suppose we have a variable in our main. So we have this variable which value is not used. So right after this variable, we can assert that the name is not equal to John. So we are asserting the name variable should not be John. And right after this, we print hello name, meaning that hello John. So let's comment this out and try only this assertion error. So run this. So we will get the assertion error. Assertion failed, meaning that the name should not be equal to John. So that's the assertion failed error. And also one other example of error will be, let's suppose we pass the string instead of string. Now open this, you can see we got the error. So that's the error, undefined class string. So that's our or the programmer's mistake, so that we have to correct, but we cannot catch this error just because that's the error, that's the programmer's mistake. So programmers have to correct it by changing the code. So make it string, and this assertion change it to Steve. So when we run this, we will get the answer hello Steve instead of getting the assertion failed error. So that was the difference between exception and also the error, and also some examples from these errors and the exceptions. And one more thing here is the warning. The integer division by 0 exception is deprecated and should not be used. Use the unsupported error instead. Okay, if you are saying it's deprecated, so we will use the unsupported error. Unsupported error. So this will be the same, just because this class was deprecated in the previous versions of Dart, so no problem, we can use this unsupported error, so its work is same. That's it. And here, instead of this integer division by 0, we can also use this. So that was it for the exception and the error. So far, we learned so many basics and some little advanced concepts of Dart programming language, but now it's time to get to know more about Dart advanced concepts. So we know that Dart is a general purpose client optimized optionally typed language to build fast app on almost every platform. But with this, Dart is also object oriented programming language and supports all object oriented programming concepts like object and classes, inheritance, mixins, polymorphism, encapsulation, and also abstraction. And we are going to learn all of these concepts in this section of object-oriented programming. The concepts like inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstractions are applied on classes. So before going towards these concepts, you should know about object and classes. So first, let's understand a bit from the theory, and then we will land on the practical work, so your confusions will be cleared along the way. In simple words, the class is a way of organizing information about some type of data so that a programmer can reuse the organized information using the same instance of the class. Like suppose we have a bunch of data that could be used throughout the app. So what do you think? We should copy and paste the same data in different modules? No, that's not the way to do it. Object-oriented programming solves this problem by giving us the classes for organizing that bunch of data in a container-like class and reuse that data anywhere in your app using the same instance of that particular class. Object-oriented programming also says the classes are blueprints for creating objects. And as I said, a class encapsulates a bunch of organized information. Now to access this information or the properties of the class, we must create an object of the class. So now what is an object? An object in object-oriented programming is a variable or the instance of the class used to access the properties of the class. These properties can be like the variables and functions inside a particular class. So next, object have two features, state and behavior. Let's take a real life example. Suppose a human as an object. The state of human are like his age, name, health, etc. and the behaviors are like walking, sleeping and running. Same like this, Dart object-oriented programming objects has same state and behaviors. The variables inside the class are said to be the states of the class, while on the other hand, the methods that utilize these variables on some way to perform some actions are the behaviors of the object. Well, I know on the first try, everything seems to be difficult, so I would say if you're still confused about object and classes theory, rewatch this object-oriented programming section and I hope this will clear your confusions, because again, nothing can be understood on its very first time. So that was it for the theory. Let's go to the practical work. So in our Dart programming language, a class can be declared using the class keyword, and then we are going to have the class name in front of the class as an identifier. Like let's suppose we named our class a person, just like that. Now there is still one error. A class declaration must have a body even if it's empty. So we are going to have a body of a class, the same body as we have in here for the main method. So the body will be the curly braces open and close brackets. So we got our class in our Dart programming language. So that's how we declare our class. Now initially, there is no properties inside the class, like the variables and the function. Now first let's understand how we can create the object of this class. So as I said, the object of the Dart is a variable or the instance of the class. So inside the main method, we are going to have an object of the class. So this will be a simple variable and its type will be person, and we will say object obj equals to person, and simply put the parenthesis here and the semicolon. So we have created the object for this person class. Now we can access the properties inside the class using the object and using the Dart notation, like object dot and some property of the class. So we don't have any properties inside the class like the fields and the methods. So inside the class we are going to have some members of the class. So let's remove it and let's see what will be the members of the class. So then we will access it using this object of the class. First of all, we are going to have the fields inside the class. So what are fields? The variables inside the class is known as fields. So let's suppose we have the string variable and its name and is equal to, let's say, Steve, and put the semicolon in here. So this variable is said to be field inside a single class. So next we can have the int integer type variable and simply age equals to, let's say, 30. So these are the fields inside the class. So now we can access these properties or the fields using the object of the class, like we have this object inside the main function and we can access the fields like obj.name or age. So by doing this, we have accessed the name property or the field of the class. Now when we run this, obviously we will get nothing, just because we have to wrap this object name with the print statement. Let's say print and cut this object name from here and paste it inside the parentheses of the print function, and remove this column from here and put it in here. Now remove the unused spaces in here. Now run this, we will get the Steve inside our console. So that's how we can create the fields inside the class, and using the object of the class we can access it, and these are said to be also the stats of the class. And next, inside the class we can have the getters and setters. So what are getters and setters? The getter and setters allows a program to initialize and retrieve the values of fields in a class. Like let's say we have this name but is not initialized. So now this will give us an error just because by default the variables are non-nullable in Dart programming language. Dart offers sound null safety, meaning that the value of the variable cannot be null unless you said that it can be. Now the variable are by default non-nullable, but when I put the question mark in front of the type of the variable, so it becomes nullable and the error is gone. So now we said that the variable is null, so it's null. By default the variable is non-nullable and we will get the error, compile time error. You can see non-nullable instance field name must be initialized, and on its alternative we can also use the keyword late, so it also means this will be initialized later. So now in the main function we can do like cut this from here and create a variable of string and name it name equals to object.name equal to, let's say, John. So we have initialized this and print this name and run this. So we got John in here. Or we can also do this like remove this name from here and we have initialized this variable and simply directly print this object name. Now run this, we will get the same answer, John. So that's what this late or null safety means in Dart programming language. So we are talking about the getters and setters. So first let's suppose this variable is not initialized. Let's comment this out also. And the getters and setters are, as I said, allow a program to initialize and retrieve the values of fields in a class. First of all, we are going to have the getter method. As the variable type is string, so the getter of the name to get the name will also be string, like string get. This is a keyword to use as a getter, and then there will be the name of the getter, let's say get name, and simply open the body using these curly braces and return the name. So that's what this getter method is doing, simply using the get keyword to get it, and this is a getter, and simply return that name. And the setter will be a bit different. Set means simply set a variable as it's not initialized, simply declared using the late keyword, meaning that it will be initialized later. So the setter method will be like void set, and let's say set name, and this is going to accept a parameter and will be string name. And inside the body we are going to do this dot name equal to name. So what this means, this keyword in Dart programming language refers to the current instance of the class. Like we are saying this name of which is the field of the class will be equal to the name we pass when we call this set name. So let's try it out in here. So now as this name is not initialized and we run this, we will get nothing in the console. And it's saying late initialization error, field name has not been initialized. So you can see we have not initialized this variable and simply declare it using this late keyword. So for that we have created the getter and setter methods, get name and also set name. So first of all we are going to use the set name to set that variable, and then we will use this get to get that name. Simply right after this object name equal to John as we have initialized in here. So first of all we are going to have the object dot set name, and we will make it equal to, let's say again the John, or let's say Steve Jobs, and simply put the semicolon in here, and inside the print statement we will call the object dot get name. So simply we have set the name using the setter and simply get this inside the print statement, so we will get the Steve Jobs in our console. So you can see we got the Steve Jobs, we use the setter, and then we call the get name inside the print, so we got this get the value which we have set it in here, and that's the value of this variable. Now we are not getting the late initialization error just because we have initialized this in the main method using these getters and setters. So that's how we can use the getters and setters, and you can also do it for the age. If you remove the value of it and simply initialize it using the late keyword, or also you can make it nullable. So you can use the get and set these on methods, and simply inside the main function you can set or get these variables. So now if you look at the right hand side, we have some warnings in here. It says name non-constant identifiers using the lower camel case. So it's talking about these names of getters and setters. It's saying use the lower camel case. So what are the cases or the conventions of naming the variables or some functions? So we will talk about these cases in some other video. So now let's do the lower camel cases. Let's say get and name to name the variable just like this. You can see now the warning has gone, and we can name this set name. Now also change it in the main function, so the error will be gone just like this way. And there is one more warning, avoid return types on setter. Okay, let's remove this also, and that is set method. Now run this is working the same, and yes, that's working the same. So that was the getters and setters and the fields inside the class. And we also learned the object to access the properties or the members inside the class using this object. And next in the classes we have the constructor. A constructor is a special function of the class which is created with the same name of the class. Like we can do on top of the fields or everything, we are going to have the person and the parentheses, and that's it. So that's how we can create a constructor in a class. So as I said, a constructor is a special function, so it can also be parameterized, meaning that it can accept the parameters, or it will be declared right after these fields but not on the top. So I said a constructor is a special function, so it can be parameterized, mean can accept the parameters. But if we declare a constructor with no parameters, so a default no argument constructor is provided as we have in here. No arguments are required in this constructor, and the constructor is responsible for initializing the variables of the class. Like we can also do the same thing as we have done with the getters and setter. Like if I do this dot name inside the constructor of the class, so you can see we got a compile time error. The positional argument accepted 1 but found 0. Now let's remove these from here, and also remove this object get name from here, and simply pass the string, let's say jobs in here, and simply print the object dot name. So now run this, so we will get the same jobs in the console. You can see in here. So the constructor is responsible for initializing the variable of the class, but the constructor do not have any explicit type like the regular functions we have learned. The regular functions had the return type, like we learned about the functions. Let's create a function in here. Like we had a function to get the sum of two numbers, so we had the type of int and its name was sum, and then do perform sum here, and it was accepting some parameters like num1 and num2. So that was the syntax of function. Its explicit return type was the int, but in case of the constructor, is a special function or method in the class, but it do not have any explicit type and is responsible for initializing the variables of a class. And you will get to know more about this in more detail in the future videos if we go for real app development in Flutter. And next inside the class we are going to have the methods. The methods are a function. Like let's say we have a function same like the getters and setters, but these are the helper functions, and the functions I'm going to create are the regular function, but inside the class these are also called the methods or the members of the class. Like let's say we have a function of int and its name is, or let's return type will be string and bio, to return the bio of this person, who is the person, and this is going to return the hello my name is name, which is the name, and simply will say I am age years old. So that's what this bio function is going to do. So now in the main method we can access this main function or the bio function using the object of this person class. So the object dot not age but the bio. So that's how we access the function and also store it inside the variable. Let's say its return type is, let's say, variable, and let's say bio of person, and make it equal to just like this. And also instead of printing this, we will print the bio of the person. Now when we run this, we will get the hello, my name is Jobs and I am 30 years old. You can see we got this in here. Hello, my name is Jobs. The name we have specified in here. We initialize the variable using the constructor like this, and we got the age from here. It's already initialized in the class, so we got this in here. So we can also have some more methods in the person or in some other class just like this, and we can also access them using the object of the class. So we learned about the fields of the class, the getters and setters, the constructor to initialize the variables, and also the functions inside the class. And we also learned about the object. It has stats and behaviors. The stat are these fields and the behaviors are like the bio. Like we have the stat name and age, and using these variables, the stat of the object, the function is performing some specific task and saying hello, my name is name. It is using this name and my age is age, which is this age we have stored in this age variable. So we learn all of these concepts of object-oriented programming language of Dart. So that was it for the object and classes and Dart object-oriented programming language. Now on the next step, we have the inheritance concept of object-oriented programming. So what is inheritance? In real life, the inheritance is the process by which the genetic information is passed on from parents to child. Like your friends looks like your parents, or your habits are same as your parents, etc. But on the other hand, in programming, the inheritance is the process of deriving the properties and characteristics of another class. Like let's take an example, and suppose we have the class A and B, and class A can perform some specific task. Now we want class B to perform the same task as the A class, so we will derive the class B from the class A. So by doing this, we will be able to use the properties of A class in the B class. So now let's understand it by doing it practically in the online editor DartPad. Suppose we have these two classes, class A and B. The class A has some properties or the fields of name Steve and age 45. So we can create the object for A and can access the properties of name and age. But we want these similar properties inside the B class. So for that, we have to derive B class from A class. So to derive B class from A class, Dart provides us the extend keyword to do this. So we will use the extends keyword right after this B class name. We will do extends, and in front of it we will say the A. So now B class extends A, meaning that B is derived from A class. Now the class A is said to be the superclass or the parent class, and the class B is said to be the child class or the subclass. Like the A class becomes its parent and the B becomes its child, or superclass A and subclass B. Now if we create an object for B, let's say B, and let's say object B, and make it equal to B and put parentheses to initialize or instantiate the class. So we got object B. Now we will print and say object B dot name. So you can see we don't have any name properties inside the B, and we create the object of B. Simply the B is derived from A. That's because we have these properties also in the B class. Now when we run this, we will get this Steve in our console. So that's how we can derive one class from other class to get the characteristic and some properties of one class in the other class. So that was some basic I wanted you to know. And next we have the types of inheritance. The types are, let's write or comment it out in here. We have first type single inheritance, which we have already performed in here. I will explain it in a while. First let me write it in here. The single inheritance, and next we have multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. So we have these four types of inheritance, and we already have performed the single inheritance, meaning that only one class derived the other class and there is no third class in here, so it means this is single inheritance in Dart programming language. But in case of multiple inheritance, so Dart do not support multiple inheritance, like to extend one class from so many classes, and it is supported in other programming languages like C++ and some other. So on the third number, we have the multi-level inheritance. So what is multi-level inheritance? Multi-level inheritance will be if a class is inherited by or derived by B class, and then B class is inherited or derived by C class, and making the chain of classes. So that will be called multi-level inheritance. Like we have the A and B classes, and then we create one more class and name it C, and the C extends B class and open body. And now when we create D class and D class extends C class, so that will be multi-level inheritance. And now we can have these similar properties also in the C class, just because first B extends A class, so I got these classes. Now when C extends B class, so we already have these properties, so C will also got these properties. Now let's try it out. Let's create one more instance or object C and name it object C equal to C and instantiate it. Now when we print and simply do object C dot name, you can see we can access the name also from the C. Even C is on third number, first B extend A and then C extend B. So that's how we got the properties of A in the C using the multi-level inheritance of Dart programming language. So now when we run this, we will get 2 Steves in the console. So that was expected. Now to make it more clear, we will cut this and we will say belongs B equal to this, and also copy this and paste it in here and name it belongs C and object, and this will be accessed from object C. So when we run this, we will get the Steves in the console, and this belongs from B, this belongs from C. So that is multi-level inheritance in Dart programming language. So now what is hierarchical inheritance? Hierarchical inheritance is like if one class is extended by 2 classes. Like let's say we are not extending the C from B, but we extend C from A. So now 2 classes extends one class, so that is said to be hierarchical inheritance. Now the C still can have the name and age property, just because as B has the properties B extend A, so just like the C also extend A, so both have the same properties. And these can also access the methods. Like if we create one method, A is let's say string and eat and open body, and print, we will do name is eating and his age is age. So that's the eat method inside the A, and we got the compile time error just because we are setting the return type string, and by default the body might completely normally causing null to be returned, but the return type string is potentially non-nullable. It means if we specify the explicit type to a function and this type is potentially non-nullable, so it means we have to return something, so this error will be gone. So if we don't return something from here, we will simply make it void and the error will be gone. So that's just the void method, means return nothing, simply printing this stuff, and we got this eat method in here. Now this eat class can be accessed from B class and also from C class, just because B extend A and C also extend A and is hierarchical inheritance. So in here, if we do, let's say object C dot eat, just like this, and run it, so we will get the Steve is eating and his age is 45. You can see we got it in here, and is belongs to object C. We directly call it in here just because we are already printing it in here. So we don't have to write print again, and just because we are doing it like this and not putting it inside the print parentheses. So we learned about the object and classes, and also the getters and setter methods, the constructor and the methods. And now we also learned the inheritance between the classes, and we learned the types of inheritance, single inheritance, multiple inheritance is not supported in Dart programming language, and we learned the multi-level inheritance and also the hierarchical inheritance. And this was some basic way to perform inheritance, just to understand the basic. You will get to know more about this, or will understand it really when you go for real app development and start creating the real-time apps. So this will become more clear to you when you go for the real app development. So for now, you should only know this, that what is inheritance and what are these types of inheritance and how this works when we extend one class from other, and how it exists, the properties and the characteristic of other classes. So that's all you need to know about inheritance of object-oriented programming. So that was it also for inheritance of object-oriented programming. We learned object and classes, and also their methods, fields, constructors inside the classes, and we also learned inheritance with its types. And now we are going to learn the concept of polymorphism. And along with this, we have some more concepts in object-oriented programming that are encapsulation, abstraction, Mixins in Dart programming language, and that's all. And so far we have learned about these two concepts, how we can create objects of classes, creating instances, and also the classes which are like containers and contain the organized information. And whenever we want to access that particular information, we just have to create the instance of that particular class, and there we go, we got all the data inside the one container like class. And next we have the inheritance, which we have talked about right now, that inherits one class from other, and then the properties of one class becomes in the other class. So that's what the inheritance is. And next we have the concept of polymorphism. So now, what is polymorphism? The polymorphism is the combination of two Greek words, the poly, which means many, and then the morph, which means forms. So together the polymorphism means many forms, and it says the same entity or an object can be used in various forms, like in many forms. Or we can also say the ability of an object to take many forms. So what it means, the real world example of polymorphism would be, suppose we have a car but is manual, means you will drive the car, otherwise it won't drive. And we want to modify this car and add a feature of self-driving, so the car will become automatic and will drive itself. So here the result is the car is still driving no matter. So here the goal is common but the approach is different. Means the goal is still driving of the car no matter we add a new feature or not, but the approach is different. Like now the car becomes like a Tesla car instead of a manual car. So that was the real world example of polymorphism. It will become more clear when we implement the polymorphism in Dart. So now the question arises, how we can achieve polymorphism in Dart programming language? Well, the method overriding is a technique to achieve polymorphism in Dart programming language. So now again the question arises, what is method overriding? So before getting to know about method overriding, you must know about inheritance. And now what is method overriding? So sometimes we want a child class object to give some different results for the same method in the parent class when the child class invokes it. Like suppose we have this class A and B class extends class A. So now when we create the instance of B class in here, you can see, and we can invoke the same method which is eat. So it give us the same result. But sometimes if you want this child class or this child class to give some different result on the same method, this is called the method overriding. So how we can override a method in Dart? To override method in Dart, what you have to do, simply you have to create the same method which is inside the superclass or the parent class. So we will do void and eat and body, open body and it will print, let's say, it will say the unknown person is eating and his age is 100. So that's what this eat method will do when we invoke it from the B class instance. And now here we have override the method of the B superclass. So when we are overriding or redefining the same method again in the child class like that, the method must have the same name, the same return type, and the same arguments if accepts any, and that's it, but will only be annotated with the override notation like override. So now we have achieved the polymorphism in our Dart programming language. You can see in the superclass we have the eat method when we invoke it from the class A, if we create the object for the A class, and when we invoke this method from the instance of A. So this will give us the Steve is eating and his age is 45. But in case of B, when we invoke it from E, now B override this method which is in its superclass. So now when we invoke it from here, so instead of this result, this will give us this result which is inside the B class and overridden. So now let's try it out to test it practically. So let's create the A class instance and say object of A equals to A instantiated, and here print the object A dot eat. That's it. Now there is an error. The expression has okay, we don't have to print it just because it's already printing and it's void method, so we should not type inside the print statements just because it's not a field but a void method. So that's it. Now first of all, before running, let's comment these two instances out and run this. So we will get this result in our console. You can see Steve is eating and his age is 45. And in the session of inheritance, we have tried the eat method from the object C, and this gives us the same print statement which is inside the A. But now when we uncomment the B instance and also comment this out print, and when we invoke the object B from the object B, when we invoke the eat, so this time the eat method is override inside the B and its result is different. So we will get the different result in here. You can see we got eat in here and in here, and B extends A. So instead of getting the same result, we got a different result just because of this override. So that's how we can achieve polymorphism in our Dart programming language. To understand it more clearly, let me create one more class in here. As I gave the example in the starting, the real world example, suppose we have a class of car, and this car has a method of void and its name is drive, and this method simply prints car is driving manually. So this car is driving manually. But we have a class again, and its name is Tesla car, and this Tesla car extends the car, and here it overrides the same drive method void drive and open body print, and this Tesla car is driving automatically. So what it means, first let's correct it, extends. So now what it means, the goal of both of the cars is same, but the approach is different. Like this car is driving manually and this car is driving automatically. So the only difference is this. Now let's create the object for these two classes in here. On top of these two, here we will create the car, and object of car equals to car instantiated, and then let's do object car dot invokes the method which is drive, and also right after this create the instance of Tesla car, and here Tesla car object will be equals to Tesla car and instantiate it, and from the Tesla car object dot the same drive method. So the methods are same, you can see in these two classes, but this class, the Tesla car, override the drive method of its superclass and simply change the approach of that drive method, like it drive manually and it drive automatically. So the goal is same, still driving, you can see drive and drive, but the approach is different. So let's comment this out, A and B classes, and run this. So we will get the answer in the console. The car is driving manually, the Tesla car is driving automatically. But if we remove this or comment this override method in here, so now this car is not overriding the drive method, and this car extends the car, so this class object also has the drive method. So now when we run this, now this car or this class is not overriding the method inside its superclass, so you can see we got the same result in here. So that's what the polymorphism is, and that's how we can achieve it in our Dart programming language. So up until now, we have covered 3 topics of object-oriented programming. We have covered the topic of object and classes, inheritance, and the polymorphism. And now it's time to go for the encapsulation. First of all, let's talk about what is encapsulation. Encapsulation means hiding data within a file or a library, preventing it from outside factors. It helps us to control our program and prevent it from becoming too complicated. And remember, Dart encapsulation is at library level but not at class level. So now the question arises, how we can achieve encapsulation in Dart programming language. First of all, let's clear all these instances from the main and also delete all these classes from here to make these more clear. So how we can achieve encapsulation in our Dart programming language? First of all, let's create a class here. We have this class engine outside from our main method. So Dart do not support the modifiers like public, private, and protected to make our fields or methods private, but instead Dart use the underscore to make our fields or methods private. Like inside this engine class, this name field is set to be private just because we have used this underscore before this name. So that's how we can make the fields or methods private in our Dart programming language. And to modify the private property, we use getters and setters methods to access and update the value of the private property. Like we can have the getter method, first of all, string get, a keyword to get a property of a class, and then its name, let's say get name, and simply open body, just because get method can have any function parentheses like this. So inside this is going to return the name just like this. So that's how we can create the get method for our private to get it, and then simply the set method will be just like this, like the set keyword, the name of the function, and the parameter it accepts, like to modify it on that name, just because we have not initialized it, and we modify our name and we put the let as a modifier just because it's not initialized and will be initialized later just because of this let. And when we call this set name, we will set the name, which is the parameter of that function, and we are saying this dot name equals to this name, where this refers to the current instance of the class. And here you can see a warning, don't access members with this unless avoiding shadows. So what it means? It means use this keyword only in case if the name is just like this. You can see now the warning has gone and it becomes like this. So as it is private and we are doing it like this, and this keyword is refer to class field, and this name is to refer the parameter of this function. So this will be only used in case the field of class name and the parameter names are same. In case if these are not same, you can see the class field name has the underscore before it and is private. So if I do it without this keyword, so this will be fixed and the warning will be gone. So we can only do this in case if the class field is different from the parameter field. If both are same, so we can use this keyword to separate the class instance field and the parameter of a function. So we create a private field inside the engine class, and we have also created the getName and setName helper methods to get or set this name, just because this will be not allowed outside the library. What is a library will be clear it to you in a while. So now in the main function, we will take the instance of the class and we will do engine and object of engine equals to engine instantiate, just like this. And from the object engine, we can access the name, get name and set name. Like now set the name equals to, let's say V8, and then simply print and call the object engine dot get name. So we have a private field and we got the getters and setters, and now run this. We will get the answer V8 in the console, but that's okay. If you can see, we can also access the private field name in here, and we can directly modify it and can print this name by storing this object engine in the variable. Let's suppose string a equals to this, and simply print this a and run this. So we will get the same answer, just because we are on the same file, on the same library. That's how we are allowed to modify or access the private variables of a class. So now that's okay to modify the private keyword in a single library, or we can say a single .dart library or file, but this class or this name field will not be accessible in the other library. Let me show you by going to IntelliJ IDE. So we are on IntelliJ IDE and we have two different libraries. You can see with other library .dart and .basic.dart. So we have two different libraries, or we can say files of Dart, and in the Dart basics, which located in the bin directory, we have the main function, meaning that we can run this and this will give us the output. So here let's not do anything for now and go to the other library and copy the engine class from our DartPad and simply paste it right here. So we got this engine class, the private variable and the getters and setter for this private field of this engine class. And now in the Dart basic, now I am on the other library. Now let's take the instance of the engine, and then object of engine equals to engine. So we got the instance of the class, and now we can access object engine dot, you can see get name and set name, but we cannot access the directly name from here, just because that's private. And that's what I meant by the Dart encapsulation is at library level but not at the class level. So you can see I cannot access the name keyword, which is here private, and I cannot access it in here, but instead I can use the get name, or let's say set name, and I can set its name to, let's say, V7 engine, and simply in here I can do now print and object engine dot get name, and that's it. So now when I run this program, in the output you can see we got the V7 engine, but directly we cannot access the name keyword in the other library or in the other file. And we can import one library in the other library using this import keyword, just like this. You can see the package Dart basics other library .dart means in the Dart basic library or in the Dart file we import the other library Dart, and we got the engine from that other library. So that's how the encapsulation is in our Dart programming language, which means that hiding data within a file or a library and preventing it from outside factors. Like this name will be only used inside this library, but in case if we want to modify it, we have to create the getters and setter for that, so that will be good. Otherwise this can make our programs too complicated. So that was it for encapsulation in our Dart programming language, and you will get to know more about this in the future videos. So now what is abstraction? We have a keyword abstract in our Dart programming language. Like let me show you in here the abstract keyword, and in front of it there will be the class, like let's say repository, and before this we also have to do class, abstract class. So now that's the abstraction, and this abstract class is going to contain the abstract methods. So what it means by abstract methods, the abstract method means that the methods without the concrete implementation. Like inside this we are going to have the methods like let's say one void method which print the user name, and it also accepts one parameter of string name, and after this put the semicolon in here, and then we are going to have the let's say void print user age, and it is going to accept int age in here. So inside the abstract class we are going to have the abstract methods, means without the concrete implementation, but will be only declared and are said to be abstract. Now to print the username or user age, we have to take the instance of the repository class as we have done for some other classes, like let's say repository, and we will say object of repository, and then instantiate the repository, and then we will get an error just because the abstract classes cannot be instantiated. You can also see in here abstract classes cannot be instantiated, and the reason behind this is just because they do not have any concrete implementation but only abstract methods. So to overcome this we have to implement this repository abstract class by extending it with its subclass. So here there will be the implementation for these two methods. Now we are going to have another class, let's say class repository, and we will name it repository implementation, and this is going to implement the repository. So we have this repository implementation class, and we have this implement keyword to implement an abstract class. So this repository implementation implements this repository, which is an abstract class, and inside this now we are going to implement these two unimplemented classes. To implement them we have to do override and the same void return type, the same name and the same parameter, and that's it. Now inside this we will do print hello and simply name, and also for the second method we will do the same. To override this like this, the override, the same return type, the same name as we have in here, and the same parameter, and also print it in here using the curly braces to open the body. So now we have the abstract class and also the abstract class implementation. Like in the abstract class we are not going to have the concrete implementation of the methods, but the class which implements the abstract class is going to have the concrete implementation of the classes which are unimplemented in the abstract class. And now we are going to take the instance of repository implementation instead of the only repository, just because the abstract class cannot be instantiated because they do not have any concrete implementation. And now after creating the instance or the object of the class repository implementation, down here we will do object.repo.print user age and simply pass in the parameters 55 and put semicolon here, and also in front of this make it equal to this. So now when we run this we will get age equal to 55 in the console. You can see age equal to 55, and also we can print the other method like object.repo.print the username and pass the username in here, let's say Steve, and simply just like this run this, so it will say hello Steve. So we got the same expected output. So that was our abstract classes, which contains the methods without the concrete implementation, so that then we have to implement the abstract class to implement its methods concrete implementation, and in here we have to override them, the same return type, the same name, the same arguments, and simply the action we want to perform in the body. And it's also like the polymorphism, like here we have the only method which does nothing, but in the repository we are overriding it with the same return type, same function name, same arguments, and simply doing something on it. So it has two forms. In the abstract class it does nothing, but in the repository implementation class it prints hello and the name, which we pass as a parameter as an argument in this print user name method. So that's what the abstract classes are in our Dart programming language. And also you will get to know more about these abstract classes when you go for real app development of Flutter. So now the last remaining topic is Mixin. We learn about object and classes, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstractions in our Dart programming language. And now again, the last topic is Mixin, and now we are going to explore this Mixin. But before this, let me clear one more thing about the abstract classes. That is, if you look at in the class repository, which is an abstract class, a class containing an abstract method must be declared abstract. So that's okay. This class can contain abstract, so this is declared as abstract. But we can also directly implement these methods, like to directly open the body and simply print this and say hello, this is my this edge, and that's it. And now this body will be overridden by this print user edge in the repository implementation class, which is the polymorphism. So the thing I want you to understand about abstraction is the abstract classes will only be declared abstract when the class has one or more abstract classes. Like this class can also have the concrete implementation. It's not like that this class is declared as abstract, so this cannot have the concrete implementation. No, it's not like this. It can also have the concrete implementation of the methods, but in case if you want a class to also hold the abstract methods, the abstract means the methods without implementation, so that's when we will declare a class as an abstract. But in case if you don't want a class to have or to hold the abstract method, like the methods without implementation, so this will be just like this. Remove this from here. So now you will see an error in this class, just because the class declared just like this, like the regular classes, must have the body to implement. Like when I open the body of this, so the error will be gone. So but in case if you want a class to hold the abstract classes also, so that's when the class will be declared as an abstract, and it can also have the concrete implementation, and this concrete implementation will be overridden in this repository implementation class here. So that's the thing I wanted you to know also about the abstract classes. So now it's time to go for the mixins. So a mixin is a class whose methods and properties can be used by other classes without inheriting this class with the other classes in which we want the functions and the properties. Or we can also say mixin are reusable chunk of code that can be plugged in to any other class that needs the functionality of the other class. Like suppose here we have an abstract class just like this and has a methods of drive, and then we have three more classes just like this, and these two classes extends the car class just like this. So now one common thing in these all cars are that can drive, and that's why they extends the car class. So now when we create the instance of the Honda, Toyota or Tesla class, so we can have this drive method also in the instances of these classes. So now let's go ahead and create two more classes. Just like this, we have created auto drive and manual drive class, so that some cars are manually drive by humans and some cars are automatically drive like the Tesla. So now these cars are driving Honda, Toyota and Tesla, but this Tesla car can drive automatically and this Honda and Toyota can drive manually. As these classes already extends the car which is driving, which is common in all these classes, and when we want to again extend the Honda with manual drive, so we cannot do this just because Dart do not supports the multiple inheritance. Dart can only inherit one classes using this extends keyword, and here we already said the multiple inheritance is not supported in Dart programming language. So to overcome this issue, instead of the classes we will use the mixin, and also copy this and paste it right here, and with this Honda we will do with manual drive. So by doing this with keyword, we got the mixin manual also in this Honda class. Like we mix the manual drive Mixin in the Honda class. And also we will do with manual car for Toyota, and for Tesla we will do the with auto drive. So now when we create the instance of the Honda class, so we can have the drive and the manual drive also, which is the same driving or manual driving, but in case of Tesla we have the drive and also the manual drive, and that's how we solved that issue. Now we got the auto driving and the driving in the Tesla, and also the manual driving and the driving in the Honda and Toyota. So now let's go and take the instance of these classes. Like in here in the main method we will do, let's say, Honda and object of Honda, and let's instantiate it just like this. Now from object of Honda we can have the drive and the manual drive. So when we do drive, and right after this we do object Honda dot manual drive, so both will works, and also put the equal to in here and comment this out to work only on these mixins. Now run this, so we will get the driving and also the manual driving. You can see it in here, we got the expected output. But in case of Tesla, if we do Tesla object of Tesla equals to Tesla instantiated, and in the object of Tesla we can have the drive and auto drive. So that's how the mixins are in our Dart programming language. So that was also it for our object-oriented programming concepts. We have learned all these concepts: object and classes, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstraction, and lastly the mixins. So let's take a quick recap of all these. The classes are like a container to store the organized information in a container like class, and simply if we need it in some other library or module, so we just have to take the instance of the class and simply access the information we have in the class. And next we have the objects. The objects are the instances like this, and the inheritance. We learned about the 4 types of inheritance: the single inheritance, multiple, multi-level, and hierarchical. We have talked about single, multi-level, and hierarchical, and the multiple inheritance is not supported, which problem is solved by these mixins right now. And then we have learned about the polymorphism, like an object or entity can have many forms. If you want a child class object to give some different results for the same method in the parent class, so for that we have the polymorphism, and in the polymorphism we have the method overriding in the Dart programming language to achieve polymorphism. And next we have the encapsulation, means hiding data within a file or a library, and to prevent it from outside factors and keep our program simple and stopping it from being too complicated, like keeping data in one library or a file so that we can use it only in here but not the outside. So if you want a variable or a function to be available in the single library or Dart file, so simply we will prefix it with the underscore like this. So we have achieved the encapsulation in our Dart programming language. And in the languages like Java and some other, in these languages we have the public, private, protected keywords to achieve the encapsulation, like data hiding, just like this. And next we also learned the abstraction, like if we want a class to have the abstract methods, the methods without implementation is said to be abstract methods. So if you want a class to have the abstract methods like this, so you will simply declare a class as abstract, and that's it. And next we have learned about the mixins, which is in front of you, we have done in here to solve the multiple inheritance issue. So that was all about object-oriented programming that you need to know before starting Flutter app development. So now let's go for the forward topics.